Since late February of this year, the Russian Federation's military offensive in the Ukraine has quickly devolved into an issue of a severe humanitarian concern. In response to the ongoing displacement of Ukrainians, the United Nations Refugee Agency, or UNHCR, has declared a Level 3 emergency in the country, which is the agency's highest possible classification. There are rapidly growing resources available to monitor the displacement of Ukrainians during the ongoing conflict, and this video will specifically highlight the Ukrainian Migration Information Hub from the Center for Research and Analysis of Migration at the University College London. This online resource contains a variety of information about the situation in Ukraine, as well as responses from nearby countries. The Center for Research and Analysis of Migration was originally formed at the University College London as a think tank specializing on the economics of migration. It has since expanded its research focus to encompass topical issues of policy concern related to migration. Regarding the conflict in Ukraine, the center has largely focused on examining the effects of policies governing the rights of newly arrived asylum seekers. Plus, it reports demographic information about the Ukrainian population with an emphasis on monitoring displaced groups within and outside of the country. Before we get into the hub itself, let's go over some key terms. When discussing displaced persons, we're talking about people who have been forced to leave their place of residence due to conflict. There are, of course, other reasons that people can be displaced, such as climate disasters, but conflict is the predominant cause of displacement at the moment in Ukraine. People who have been displaced but have not left Ukraine are generally classified as internally displaced persons since they have not crossed an international border. When displaced groups leave Ukraine, they are referred to as either asylum seekers or refugees. UNHCR, for example, tends to use the term refugee more often to discuss the people who have fled Ukraine in the past month. This is because in many countries, Ukrainians are currently exempt from the formal application process for asylum or refugee status. If you would like to know more information about forced migration and displacement in general, you can have a look at the playlist linked in the description. The Ukraine Migration Information Hub can be accessed via the link shown here. You will then arrive at this homepage, where some background information and the most recent updates are shown. Scrolling down, we see the most recent estimate of people displaced from the Ukraine, and then a link to the UNHCR background document outlining the events happening over the last month. The next section is a collection of facts and figures about the Ukrainian migration situation in recent years, population demographics, and the policies of European countries towards displaced persons from Ukraine. Further down the page, there is a collection of output from the center's research staff examining historical precedents, the economic implications of large-scale displacement, refugee integration in host communities and labor markets, and more. Now, let's take a look at some of the available data now. First, there are links to the UNHCR's data, since this agency provides current estimations about the displacement and refugee flows out of Ukraine to nearby countries. Looking at this map from early March, we see the most significant portion of forced migrants are traveling to Poland. Additionally, significant flows are going to Slovakia, Hungary, and Moldova. In addition to adding links to these data, the Ukraine Hub also looks at where existing Ukrainian migrants were living in Europe before the conflict in 2020, which we see reflected on this map. This data is sourced from the UN's Department of Economic and Social Affairs, or UNDESA, which I have a video on that will be linked in the description. The research team's idea behind looking at the existing migration situation is that people fleeing Ukraine will often go to countries where they already have well-established groups of Ukrainian migrants, which we could call diaspora groups. These countries are shaded darker on the map. The second map, however, shows changes in migration patterns from 2010 to 2020. The lighter colored countries had less Ukrainian migrants per 1,000 of their population in 2020 than in 2010. This helps researchers predict that currently displaced Ukrainians might not head for countries that have seen a decrease of Ukrainian migrants in the past decade. Let's also look at the page explaining national policies towards Ukrainian migration. Linked at the top are descriptions of general European Union policies as well as a selection of countries. Each selection contains a paragraph explaining the general policies paired with a link to further information. Now, let's look at the EU section. We can see here that the EU automatically grants temporary protection, which implies lawful residence to Ukrainian citizens who were living in Ukraine on or before February 24th. This period can be extended for up to 1 additional year. We can also learn from this paragraph that protection is also extended to citizens of non-EU countries or third country nationals and those without citizenship when they were living in Ukraine and unable to return to their home country. We can then compare EU regulations with the additional measures that member states have taken. Take Italy, for example. As with many other European countries, the government has waived the formal asylum application process for displaced Ukrainians. This means that they are automatically considered refugees upon arrival and can thus receive the protective measures that the title grants. Finally, we can look at the Hub's research and analysis section. Take the recent article on historical lessons. This is relevant given that Europe has previously seen large-scale displacement during the Second World War, for example. The article focuses on how historically access to schooling was a priority for displaced families, given that education is a portable skill that cannot be lost during times of conflict. In similar articles, the Hub's researchers examined short and long-term effects of refugee integration policies in Europe to help inform current policy decisions. Furthermore, the writing is accessible enough that anyone interested can learn from these articles. I hope this video helped you connect with reliable information about the migration situation in Ukraine. Please don't hesitate to link other sources in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of this channel's videos that I upload every week. And I do hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.